Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday from back in Florida live. I hope you all enjoyed my travel edition last week, live from Salt Lake City. And if you are just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am a graduate student, a personal trainer, a mom, a nana, a girlfriend, an activewear fanatic. And I am such an advocate for wellness because I've been on a lifelong journey for mental and physical wellness. And when I started Wellness Wednesday, the intention, of course, good morning, Miss Carla, was to share some of my journey and hopes that you would share some of your journey with me, and that together we can learn tips and tricks from each other that will help us all on our wellness journey. So last week I did a travel edition live from Salt Lake City. It was kind of fun because I forgot to factor in the time change. So I was still live at 7:15 Eastern Daylight Time, but that meant that I had to be on camera at 5:15 Mountain Standard Time. But it was all good. I loved doing it. It was an awesome topic, and we'll be looking for a second edition coming soon because I will be traveling again in just a few weeks. In the meantime, while I was gone, I was in an activewear convention because that's what my online business is. And I was literally surrounded by hundreds of beautiful women of all shapes and sizes. And many years ago, this would have been a terrifying thing for me. In fact, the first time that I went to one of these, it was still a terrifying thing for me. The reason why is because my self-esteem was under a rock somewhere. And I'm pretty sure my body image was probably in the ground several feet below that. It was, I was in a bad place for a long period of time in terms of the way I looked at myself, looked at my body, looked at a lot of things. So I still get nervous sometimes approaching these events. And that depends on where my head is at the time, because this is a constant journey. It gets better as you go, but anxiety and negative body image and negative thought processes, that it is a daily practice to overcome those and not slip backwards. So obviously body image was on my mind on the way home because I was thinking about all these women, so many wearing the same types of things and different colors and patterns, and carrying themselves with such amazing confidence that it seemed like a good topic to talk about today. So the definition of a body image is essentially defined in the ways you think and feel about your physical form. Your body image has nothing to do with your physical form, nothing at all. And it is entirely dependent on your own perception. So with that said, if you're here, let me know you're here. If you don't see this till afterwards, let me know with a comment or a hashtag replay that you did see it. And if you find this helpful as we go, share it with somebody. Because that is the best thing, is if in each one of these videos, I can help someone, or one of you can help me kind of have a little bit of an epiphany, then it's absolutely worthwhile, right? Okay, so what contributes to a negative body image? Good morning, Cynthia. Nice to see you. What contributes to a negative body image? In other words, how did we get here if we have a negative body image? And just a little fun fact for you, according to DoSomething.org, and that's got some interesting facts on it. I'm going to drop that link when I'm done in the comments. Approximately 91% of women are unhappy with their bodies and resort to dieting to achieve their ideal shape, or ideal body shape. Unfortunately, only 5% of women actually possess the body type naturally that is portrayed by Americans in the media. So marinate on that for a minute, and let's talk about what contributes to a negative body image, which obviously that gives you one of the hints right there. Childhood teasing or bullying. This was a big one for me. When I was young, I won't get into all the details about the type of town and type of culture. And it's not that there was necessarily anything wrong with the culture in that town, but it was close-knit and very, very cliquish. And as a child, when I was in kindergarten, I was often referred to as well, for lack, I'm just going to say it. And I think I'm at a point where it doesn't necessarily have to have the effect on me anymore. I was referred to as it, which frequently meant that I was ugly. A lot of my peers, especially in and around 4th, 5th, 6th, even 7th grade, told me that I was ugly all of the time. And then there was also a tipping point where I began to worry about weight and how my body looked. And that was when one schoolmate was trying to leave a classroom and I was in the way because I was trying to come in. And that individual said, "Get out of my way, you cow." Now, to be clear, at that time of my life, I was very introspective and very overthinking, even at a young age. So this really, really stuck with me. And we all know that kids can be cruel. In fact, I believe as tough as it seemed at that time, it is even worse for a lot of children now. So keep that in mind. Without a doubt, it was bullying. It was picking on. It was absolutely normal to some extent and probably extreme for me. But, well, yes, and it actually started in kindergarten. I can remember coming around the corner, Carla, on the playground and hearing the boys all say, "It knows where you are," and they were referring to me. And that's a very, very clear memory, and one that had a profound effect on me for the longest time. The weight thing, the reference to me being a cow, was especially horrifying. And let me be clear, I was not in any way, shape, or form heavy. I was 14 years old, so there was still some baby fat. I also worked outside all of the time with my stepfather, hauling wood, shoveling snow. So if anything, I was extremely muscular. And because of that lifestyle, I still have incredibly strong legs. And I ate a lot, but it's because I was burning a lot. I was maybe a size 6, at that age. So I was not a cow in any way, shape, or form. But that's just an example of how, easily affected I was by a comment from my peers. And that's often where this starts, is childhood teasing or bullying, is often where your negative body image starts, because kids, they can be very mean, especially if they're feeling bad about themselves. They tend to strike out towards others. And I know that I did some of that myself. In addition to that, that's going to bring me to number 2. There's often a family emphasis or history happening with people that have a very negative body image. And what that looks like is either a family emphasis on how you should look. Sometimes it's as simple as a child seeing its mother with a preoccupation of how she looks and not being willing to leave the house unless she looks perfect and her hair is perfect. And I'm sure my daughter saw some of that with me, because we are so laser focused on what's in the mirror. And it's not so much what we actually see, but what we think everybody else is seeing and is going to pick apart, which is actually a reflection of what we're picking apart. So, and sometimes the flip side of that family emphasis or history can be, because these are learned behavior patterns. We pick these things up from the other people that we're around the most. So if you have a parent that's constantly in front of the mirror, picking and stressing and worrying and making comments, that's something you're going to tend to do as a child, and then it just kind of sticks with you and develops from there. The other side of that is if you have extremely heavy people in your family, which I did, you may assume that you are doomed or destined to be unhealthy. And I say extremely heavy people, but that can go another way too. Extremely thin people that other people are talking about being a rail or needing to eat a cheeseburger. So the point here is that there are some genetics that come into play, and there are some family coping mechanisms and behavior patterns that come into play. And that is often sometimes where this starts, as well as the childhood teasing and bullying. Peer pressure kind of still comes in there, and that applies to relationships too. So now we're talking about that childhood teasing and bullying. We're also talking about that family culture and emphasis. And now we're getting into our friends and our relationships. And sometimes we're in negative relationships where our significant others expect us to look or act a specific way. And if we don't, then there's something wrong with us. Or it's hard. I'm having a difficult time putting that into words, but I think that if you think about it, you can probably look back in your life at a close friend or a boyfriend or a girlfriend that may have made you feel like you didn't look like you should, or maybe they were constantly making comments about somebody else and how pretty or beautiful they were. And especially if it's in a romantic relationship, that can be extremely toxic. And if you already have that mindset that there's something wrong with you or that you're not attractive, it continues to compound it. And then there's the culture and the media. And that's kind of what we're talking about. That factoid I read to you at the beginning, that's where we see a lot of it. And there's been a lot of talk, and it's gotten better over the years, but it's still, with the recent release of the Sports Illustrated issue, which used to be perfect looking swimsuit models with tans and just the right measurements and all of that. And now we're releasing those with plus size models, which are not always plus size, by the way. They're normal size people. And Martha Stewart. And so it's starting to become more inclusive, but for a very long time there, and a lot of times still, your media, what you see on TV, what you see portrayed in magazines, TV, movies as the ideal woman, the one that always catches the great guy in the movies, whatever, is often a specific body type, shape, look, that is unrealistic and is not the norm. And we learned a long time ago that there's a lot of photoshopping that's going on in magazine photos and covers and things like that. So the media and our American culture has fed this for a very long time with ultra thin, too thin models, and unrealistic because of the whole camera adding 15 pounds or whatever it is, and a very unrealistic perception of what the ideal female should look like. And in a lot of cases, the ideal male too. Women are not the only ones who suffer from negative body image. So another issue that contributes to this is one size fits all measuring systems. And I've actually known this for a while because of my daughter's genetic makeup. But when you experience it yourself, it's a little easier to see. So my daughter's father's side of the family are very big boned. They were probably built to survive epic world events. Okay. They're just big boned, tall, broad shouldered, large people. And there's a couple of those on my side of the family too. So, but obviously not me. So my daughter is much taller than me. Maybe as broad-shouldered or close to it, and has some very heavy bones. Even from the time she was like 2, she looked like a perfectly normal child, but you would almost throw your back out trying to pick her up because her bones were so dense. And one-size-fits-all measuring systems, like the way that body mass index is calculated, and the height weight charts that you find in the doctor's offices when you're taking your child in for a checkup, or yourself in for a checkup, that says that if you don't fit into this particular box on this particular chart, that you are overweight, is not always accurate. Because my daughter, when she was training for softball, and at what I would call her fighting weight, we all have what we would call a fighting weight, which is where we felt our best and felt like we looked our best. If she would have lost another 10 pounds, she would have looked too thin. She may have even looked sickly. But at this point, she looked amazing. She felt amazing. She was physically capable of a lot of things. And she was still 178 pounds. She has one leg bone probably outweighs my whole body. So these size charts and these weight versus height charts and things that are still used in the doctor's office, and these BMI calculations, they lump everybody into a very, very specific category. And even at that time at 178 pounds, where literally if you looked at her, if she would have lost another 10 pounds, she would have looked too thin or sickly. She was still coming in obese on the medical charts. So that in of itself is a huge example of how these one size fits all measuring systems that I'm sure had their purpose when they were started can really, really, not only be way off base, but really make you as the patient, whether you're a child or a parent or the patient, really make you feel like there's something wrong with you when you don't fit into what's considered normal, because normal is so skewed. Yes, BMI charts. Exactly, Carla. So, and then weight loss tools. Another thing is weight loss tools that don't encourage proper eating and activity. We see this all the time. We see these ads for, buy this pill for $29.95. Yeah, I continued to eat the same. The reviews will look something like I continued to eat the same. I didn't have to do any exercise and I still lost all these pounds. That's not realistic. Why is that not realistic? Because to be healthy is the new thin, okay? Strong is the new thin. To be healthy, you need to have physical activity. You need to have regular, healthy, clean-ish diet with fruits and vegetables. So we have all these weight loss tools that are either pills that say you don't have to do anything, or fad diets that would have you cut out entire food groups that you need to survive. And that contributes to this as well. Also, sometimes our public campaigns, right, straight from the government, can be very misguided, and the way that and it's in the way they're worded, and it's not so much necessarily that they've done it on purpose, but it can lead you to feeling like proper diet and exercise equal goodness and responsibility. And so now you've attached whether or not you're getting proper diet and exercise to your to whether or not you're a good person. And that's not okay either. So those are some of the things that contribute to negative body image. So what are some warning signs of negative body image? How would you know if you saw it in your child, your sister, your brother, your loved one, or in the mirror when you're looking in there? So warning signs: inability to accept a compliment, especially if it's a compliment that's based on how that person looks. I was famous for this. Now I can say, well, thank you very much, or thank you very much, and turn a compliment back around. It's still sometimes difficult. Once upon a time, I would be like, oh no, there's this wrong and there's this wrong. And I would literally take that comment and throw it back and pick it apart. Okay. So inability to accept a compliment, especially one that's based on the way you look. If someone tells you you're beautiful, or you look really good that day, or that dress looks great on you, that shouldn't necessarily be related to body image, but it can very quickly be taken that way by the person that's having an issue. Constant comparison of yourself and to others. I find personally to be at the crux of a lot of our issues, not just body image related, when we are constantly comparing ourselves to other people in a negative, unhealthy way. I have a friend who just is amazing. This individual, I've talked about her before, even when she's angry, she seems to be happy and she's smiling while she's telling you about why she's angry. Okay. So I compared myself to her and said I wanted to be more like that. And that's kind of what one of the things that kind of clicked in my journey from the negative thought processes to the positive one was because the way I compared myself to her was in a healthy way. I wanted to be a happier person. And so I craved spending time with that individual because of the way she was. The opposite. So it's okay to compare yourself to someone else if it's in a productive and useful and healthy way. But when you're constantly comparing yourself to others to amplify what you think is wrong with you, that's where it gets ugly and it gets unhealthy, and it can get really ugly really fast. So constant comparison in terms of, oh, well, I don't have that, or I don't look like that, so I must be a terrible person. That's the kind of comparison I'm talking about. This is a lot of that is a warning sign that there is an issue. if you or their mood is affected by if your mood is affected by how you think that you look that day. If the last thing you saw in the mirror and the last thing you said to yourself in the mirror was, this is terrible, I can't do anything else about this, I gotta go, and how you look has now affected your entire mood and everything you're doing for the day, that is a huge warning sign. That would look something like, especially for somebody that maybe has a little social anxiety too, and I've been there before, putting on 2 or 3 different outfits, and finally like, I'm not going, I don't have anything to wear, I can't go, I look terrible and everything. So there's a clothing meltdown that happens there, and there's a body image meltdown that happens there, and that results in not going and doing the thing or the things that they were planning to do, because now they've gotten twisted up inside of how they think they look. Avoidance of excessive editing of photos. And with all of the editing options there are now in our current technology, it gets easier and easier to edit photos and edit out those things that you think are imperfect about you. Or you avoid photos, or you take like 80 of them before you post one. And I've been there. I've gotten so much better about that. But that is a warning sign of avoidance or excessive editing of photos. Just for the record, any of the photos you ever see me put up, I don't edit. I have not had the patience to find my way through the learning curve of any of these editing tools. And when I find a picture that I like enough to post, and it usually takes like 3 to 5 pictures now instead of 20 to 25 pictures, I like it for what it is. I've learned to like the way I look in photos, and I've learned to like it for what it is and post it as it is. So just for the record, if you've ever looked at any of my photos, my things aren't edited unless it's like a professional headshot that somebody took. And that's been a while. So, but yes, avoidance or excessive editing of photos is a warning sign. Negative self-talk. You hear somebody tearing themselves down in the mirror. You've heard me talk about this before, where they're standing and they're looking in the mirror and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so fat. Look at the size of my butt. And even curse words coming in there. I've been known to do it, just picking apart. Look at this face. Oh my gosh, these wrinkles, all that negative self-talk. If that's happening a lot, or even more than every great once in a while, that's a sign of an issue. If you're equating success or perfection or other feelings of worth, capability, feeling strong, whatever, to being thin or shapely, and I say thin or shapely for a reason I'm going to get to. We're going to talk about that cheeseburger here in a minute. To being thin or shapely, then that's an issue, because your body shape and how you look has nothing to do with what's inside. I have a friend who was walking through a parking lot, and this individual, and I've known a few people like this in my lifetime. I grew up with one. People who had difficulty gaining weight, so they were very, very thin all the time. So if you've known somebody like this, or if you've experienced this yourself, let me know, raise your hand. And I had a friend, this was several years ago, and I was absolutely horrified when I heard this story. They were driving through the parking lot, or they were walking through the parking lot, and somebody else driving by put down a window. Now, this is an adult bully we're talking about right here. Put down a window and said, hey, you need to eat a cheeseburger. So you can see that this is not just about people that may be a little overweight or people that are heavy. This is about people that are thin, that have negative, that have reasons, genetic reasons or physiological reasons why they can't put on weight, and they experience a lot of the same things that anybody that's overweight, or just somebody that doesn't think they're the right shape and is tearing themselves down in the mirror. That had a tremendous effect on that person. So if you're equating success or perfection, again, or things about your personality with the way you look, that you're not shapely enough, or you're not thin enough, or whatever not curvy enough, or whatever the situation may be, that's a sign of a problem. And I lost my spot on my list here. An ever-present fear of gaining weight. If somebody is constantly obsessed with doing things and constantly doing things so they don't gain weight, if that is the reason, then that's a sign of a problem. And then, of course, the distorted view of a body or body parts. I know that for me personally, and for some eating disorders, there's actually a mental dysmorphia that comes into play where what you see in the mirror, yeah, exactly, Cynthia. That's exactly what should have happened. But if something like that happens and you're in a parking lot and you're already self-conscious about the fact that you can't gain weight, those kinds of things, unfortunately, don't come to you till long after the fact. And that individual was pretty devastated for a few days at that comment because they had been trying so hard to gain weight and trying to also come to terms with the way they were and understand that there was more involved than just that they weren't as curvy as the next girl. But yes, you're absolutely right. Cheeseburgers should have minded their own darn business. So distorted view of body parts is when people are looking in the mirror and they're seeing something completely different than what's actually there. And that starts getting into diagnosable disorders. I know that when I was 110 pounds or even 98 pounds, I would look in the mirror and I had experienced a little bit of that mentality myself where I saw things about me that were much larger than they really were. So what I was seeing was not what everybody else was seeing. And that's a huge sign of a problem. So there's some warning signs. So this is running a little bit long. So let me get on with so how can you improve yours? That's the next thing we want to get to. How can you improve yours? And then we're going to talk quick about how you can help a loved one that is struggling with theirs. So if you're struggling with your body image, remember that what you're seeing when you look in the mirror is your perception and not necessarily fact. Or what you think is wrong with you is not necessarily fact. It's your perception. Fat is not a feeling. Okay. So when you're looking in the mirror, if you are calling yourself fat is not a feeling. What you are picking apart is probably something no one else is noticing. For example, I have in parentheses here, great hair days. I have walked out of the house on numerous occasions thinking that my hair needed to be shaved bald because I was done with it. It looked horrible. I just couldn't do anything else with it. And this is it. We're done. The days that I have walked out of the door feeling the most self-conscious about my hair are the days that I've gotten the most compliments on my hair. So keep in mind that what you may be picking apart in the mirror is not necessarily what everybody else is focused on. A lot of times we're focused on these tiny little things like, what is that spot right there? And what is that little wrinkle right there? And we're focused on these little teeny tiny things. And the people that are around us and the people that love us, they're looking at our eyes and they're looking at the way we're smiling or glowing on any given day. And if you've got a spot here that's of concern that they've never seen before, they might ask you about it. Or if you've got a bruise under your eye, they might be like, hey, is everything okay? What happened there? But that's because they care about you and they're concerned. Most of the time, the things that we are obsessing over in the mirror are not anything that anybody else is paying attention to unless they are also obsessing over things in the mirror and they're looking at other people, which we often tend to do, trying to look for something wrong with somebody else to make themselves feel better. So perception is not a fact. Fat is not a feeling. How you feel on any given day shouldn't have as much to do with how you look. I mean, obviously you put on a great pair of pants that fits well or a beautiful dress, and it has an effect on how you feel. I just lost it. It is perception. What you see when you look in the mirror is your perception and not everybody else's. Examine your own attitudes. One of the ways that you can improve your body image is to examine your own attitudes, like we just talked about. How do you perceive or judge others? If you find yourself in a room, and I have done this myself, I am totally guilty, and you're picking apart the way somebody else looks in a piece of clothing, or you're thinking, oh my gosh, if I was that shape, I would never wear that item. then your own attitudes, you may be seeing that reflected in the mirror when you're looking in the mirror. So it's important to examine your own attitudes about weight and body shape and what is considered beautiful, and whether or not you're judging others, because a lot of times that is a reflection to whatever's going on inside of you. And if you're doing that, you may also be expecting other people to do that, which may lead you to being very self-conscious in public if you assume that everybody else is looking at you the way you're looking at them. So it's important to examine your own attitudes. It is important to remember that every body is different. For example, I always joke about the fact that I'm very short-waisted and I only have about 2 inches from my bottom of my rib cage to the top of my hip bone. Do you know what that means? That means that a woman who is long-waisted is probably going to have more abdominal definition, and be able to wear different clothes than I'm ever going to be able to wear. Does that mean there's something wrong with me? No, it means her body shape is different. So I had to learn over time. I would look at these women and the women in the magazines that had these long waists that, even the high-waisted stuff still came below their belly button, and they just had these hourglass shapes because of these curves. That's never going to be me, because that's not the way my body is made. And there's very little I can do about that. So what can I do? I can be okay with what I have, and I can learn to dress in things that are flattering to my body type and love my body for what it is. But I have to understand that if I chase diet or exercise or anything like that in a way where I'm constantly trying to achieve something that my body just physically can't do, that's unreasonable and irrational. So remember that every body is different, and that if you are comparing yourself to somebody who's, it would be like comparing myself to my daughter. Good morning, Miss Erica. It would be like comparing myself to my daughter. We are two completely, entirely different. For crying out loud, she's almost a foot taller than me. We're two completely different body shapes. So for me to compare myself to her or vice versa could be very damaging, because there's things she can wear that I can never get away with. And there's things I can wear like crops where you will never see my belly because they come to my hips, that she couldn't wear because they'd be right here on her. So remember that every body is different, and don't compare yourself. Don't compare yourself at all. But if you're going to compare yourself, definitely don't do it with people that are shaped completely different than you, in genetic ways that are way beyond anybody's control. Make a list of the amazing things your body does and can do. I have always felt better about my body no matter what kind of shape it was in. Whether I was on the heavier end of the scale or the lighter end of the scale, I've always felt better about my body and myself when I have felt strong. Strength, because I was so strong as a child, because of hauling wood and shoveling snow and playing, climbing up the hill and riding my bike everywhere. I was so strong that strength makes me feel good. So I may be looking in the mirror and being like, I haven't exercised in 10 days other than to walk, and I can tell because nothing's fitting right. But what's really happening is I'm feeling weak. So what I'm seeing in the mirror is a reflection of how I'm feeling, but it's manifesting in a different way, if that makes sense. What I'm really feeling is weak. I'm feeling like, oh gosh, if I can't do 20 lunges without feeling exhausted because I've been traveling and I've done a lot of walking but haven't done any other kind of exercise, I'm looking in the mirror and I'm seeing the weakness I'm feeling, but the weakness isn't actually visible. So now we're back to that perception thing, perception versus fact. So make a list of the amazing things your body does and can do. My body can run half marathons. My body can lift a lot of things that other people my size cannot lift. I love it when I feel strong enough to pick something heavy up and not to need help with it, even though I've learned to ask for help a little bit more. So what can your body do? My body has given birth to an amazing child who has then given me a grandson. What kinds of things can your body do? Did you have a life-altering experience? My appendix tried to kill me, and I'm here to talk about it, which means my body has the ability to recover very well from near-death experiences. What has your body done, and what is your body capable of doing that makes it amazing? Because that has nothing to do with how it looks. It has to do with what your unique body that God gave you is capable of. And that's what we need to remember when we look in the mirror and we're starting to tear ourselves down. Remember that healthy bodies are made from healthy lifestyles, not dieting and excessive exercise. I exercise a lot. I work out regularly, 5 to 6 times a week. Why? Because it makes me feel good, because it makes me feel strong. I do yoga because I feel so much better after I've done it, especially when I haven't done it in 10 days, because my body needs that stretching and needs to get the blood moving. And then, of course, recognize the last way on how you can improve your own body image is recognize media for what it is. Put the magazines down. Don't be laser focused on the women on the fashion runway, because if you read the stories and pay attention to the documentaries, those women lead miserable lives. They are literally always like 2 pounds away from being kicked out or kicked off contract or whatever. That's an ugly place, and they work very hard for what they do, and they're under an extreme amount of pressure that is, for the most part, not healthy. So how can you help a loved one that's struggling with this? And then I'm going to wrap up. I know this one's a little long, but some of these topics, they just require a little more attention. So how can you help a loved one that is struggling with negative body image? Complement their personality attributes instead of how they look. Very simple. Focus on, Erica, you were the last one that popped up on my screen, so I'm going to pick on you. Erica, you are glowing today. You must have some awesome stuff happening in your life. So that's still a little focused on how Erica looks. But it's not a specific, hey, you look great in that dress. That's a nice shirt. Your hair's really good today. Erica, you did amazing job on whatever it was that she just did. And Erica, again, I'm only picking on you because you're the last person to pop up on my screen. But compliment their personality attributes. Erica, your smile is just off the chain today. Okay? Her smile is her smile, right? There's not a whole lot that can change about that. Doesn't matter what she's wearing or whether she was 5 pounds heavier or lighter on the scale today, right? Good morning, Miss Danielle. Nice to see you. I am wrapping up, so be sure that if you get a chance, you go back to the beginning and check this out. Okay, so compliment personality attributes and things that person can't control necessarily, that don't have anything to do with diet, exercise, weight, looks, anything like that. Eliminate diet and weight talk altogether. If you are with somebody that you know is struggling with their weight, whether it's because they are too thin or they think they're too thin, they're trying to gain weight, or somebody that's trying to lose weight, and you know that they're really struggling with a negative body image for either one of these reasons, it's best to eliminate diet and weight talk altogether if you can. Sometimes there are some situations where if you can see that somebody has gained weight and they've been trying to gain weight, or is losing weight and they're trying to lose weight, it's okay to make a comment like, hey, you're starting to look a little curvier. Are your attempts to gain weight working, or something like that? But it's really best in these cases, especially if it's somebody that's struggling with their body image, to leave talk about weight and stuff out of it. Let them bring it up, because at some point, if they have gained the weight they wanted to gain, or if they have lost the weight they wanted to lose, they'll let you know. They'll be like, did you see anything different? I was 5 pounds heavier on the scale when I got up this morning, or I was 5 pounds lighter on the scale when I got up this morning. They'll let you know if they want to talk about it, because they will be proud. Otherwise, it's best to just eliminate diet and weight talk. Never joke about or shame anyone. The cheeseburger comment that I talked about earlier, never, ever, ever, especially, we shouldn't do it to anybody, but especially if it's someone you know that's struggling with their body image, making comments and jokes about needing to eat a cheeseburger or needing to eat a salad, not okay. Absolutely not okay. and not going to help the person, your loved one that's struggling with this. Focus on health and wellness versus diet and loss fads. That's another way that you can help. If you want to help a friend that's struggling with body image, instead of taking them out to lunch, ask them to join you for a walk. They don't have to know that's why you're doing it. Say, listen, I'm trying to get a little healthier. I've eaten too much. Let's go for a walk instead. You don't even have to say that. You can just be like, hey, it's such a nice day. Let's go for a walk. You know, we have a tendency, especially in America, where everything revolves around food. So whether somebody's trying to gain weight, somebody's trying to lose weight, or somebody's just trying to maintain where they are, everything revolves around food. So if we could do more things like walking together or jogging together or hanging outside somewhere with a cup of coffee, not everything has to involve food. So focus on health and wellness versus diet and weight loss fads. Go line dancing together. Go to Jazzercise together. There's some belly dancing classes going on somewhere around here. I just recently found out. And that could be a lot of fun to do with a friend that has zero focus on size and shape. In fact, oftentimes in the belly dancing world, the more curves you have, the more you're revered, right? So focus on health and wellness versus diet and weight loss fads. Okay, this one's definitely running long today. So here's a few things to remember. Remember that society's ideal body is an unachievable ploy invented by the diet industry to make money. It's a true story. We are so much more than just a body. Number 2, healthy is the new thin or thick or whatever it is you're striving to be. Healthy is what you should be striving for. Whatever weight, size, shape you feel your absolute best at, your most energetic, your happiest, where you're sleeping the best, that's what you should be striving for. Know the signs of an eating disorder and refer when necessary. In our next Wellness Wednesday, I will talk a little bit about some common eating body image disorders and what they look like. So it's going to be kind of a second part of this one. And of course, as always, if you found this helpful in any way, please share it. We do fun health challenges in my VIP group all the time. There's no strings attached. Right now, we're doing a roll the dice challenge. Why do we do this? We do this for community, and we do this to encourage each other and also to get some healthy habits going, like drinking water, taking steps, things like that. So if you'd like to join, consider joining my VIP group. I'll also drop that link in the comments. We're doing a challenge right now. We're on day 2 of a 14-day challenge. It's totally okay and not too late to get in. We have some cool exercise dice that we're rolling every day and a yoga dice that we're rolling, and that's what we're doing along with exercise, along with steps and water. So super easy. But yes, healthy is the new thin. Healthy is the new shapely, whatever the case may be for you. Like I said, consider joining my VIP group if you want a little help with encouragement and getting moving. I hope you found this helpful. I know it was a little bit longer than usual, but absolutely. And again, if there's somebody that can benefit from this, and you don't want to tag them or call them out or share it to their wall, you can share it in Messenger too. Sometimes that way you can get to one person that you think it might find it helpful. And that's all I've got today. I think that was more than enough. Let me know if you found this helpful. Let me know if you have some tips about improving body image, maybe something you've employed that's helped you or helped someone you loved that was having body image issues. I'm going to drop a couple of links in the comments for you. And if you want to take a look, if you want the links for anything else that I used for some of my research, let me know. Send me a message. And I will see you next Wednesday, where we will talk a little bit more specifically about the most common eating disorders and body image disorders, because I bet you that no matter how much you know about these, there may be a couple things you don't know, because I know there were a couple things I didn't know. So I'll see you next Wednesday. Have a fabulous Wednesday and be well. Bye-bye.